Great Magic cards don't have to cost you a lot of money. In today's video, we're going to take a look at some neglected Magic cards that may be the exact fit for a deck you're building. When Magic cards get really cheap, but they're still good cards, it really kind of begs you to say that phrase from RoboCop from the 80s. I'd buy that for $1. Welcome back, everyone. mtgnews here. Thanks again for hanging out with me for another video today. And a reminder, guys, we're only 85 subscribers away from getting to 22,000 subs. Thanks again, everyone who's been hitting that subscribe button and joining the channel. It is epic to have you guys here with me each and every day when I put out new content. And a reminder that tomorrow, which will be Saturday, will of course be a top 10 video, and maybe Sadistic Glee will be there again, but either way, there'll be some spicy surprises in that video. And of course on Sunday, we'll follow up with the reserve list top 10, the hottest selling cards on the reserve list this week. Can't wait to see you guys there. Now, let's save some money, let's get down to business, and let's remember, I like these cards. Okay. Guys, the first card I want to share with you is a reserve list card, but I think it's the only card that's reserve list on the list of cards I've given you this week. Am I right? Am I second guessing myself? I don't think so. Guys, let me share this amazing card with you. This is Conch Horn, and yeah, it's from Fallen Empires. How embarrassing. Remember how much everyone pans and hates that set? I don't hate it. I still love it. Now, the average price for this card is $4.49. You can see it there. The market price is $4.98, but that's a fallacy. It's a lie. It's not true, because if you go on TCG Player, you can find these cards for about $1.50, okay? $1.50 US. What are we getting for our $1.50? Well, the Conch Horn, let's remember, generic, old school artifacts fit anywhere. It's amazing. You know what? Hold on. It's amazing that these old artifacts can fit into any deck, before I go back to that card. But here's the thing, the problem I have with a lot of new artifacts that are color sphere related, it's a blue one, it's a white one, is you have to use blue or white. You have to. Where back in the day, artifacts were supposed to be powerful creations in Magic the Gathering that were super sought after and desirable, and they did crazy things. Everything from Mirror Universe to Force Field. The originals of Howling Mind. We had a great time with old school cards. And then when they started adding colors, the cards were still powerful, but you had to use it in a certain deck. So I've always been prone to these old school cards. Now let's get back to this. Okay, so Conch Horn here is a 2 casting cost generic. Any color you want, this thing fits into your deck. If you're looking for a way to draw, if you're looking for a way to get a brainstorm in there, or a card like it, this could be the card for you. Now, it's 2 generic to cast it, 1 and tap. Sacrifice the Conch Horn, draw 3 cards. I'm just kidding. It says draw 2. Draw 2 cards, and then put 1 card from your hand back on top of your library. That's still, I know it's not draw 3, but the idea that this card is still epic and powerful, because if you need a way to search ahead, it gives you that edge. You're looking for land, well, you're drawing a couple of cards, and it's not a bad thing. If you do it at the end of a turn, you're going to draw those 2, put 1 back, and then draw 1 as well, which means you get a lot more cycling ability to get a lot of cards moving the right direction to give yourself an edge, and it's not something you should neglect, especially for $1.50. Yeah, it's a reserve list card. Yeah, it's Fallen Empires, but it's $1.50. Go buy 5, and you've spent $7. Like, come on, what are we talking about here? That's not a big dollar bill to really get things going. So I like cards like that. They do great things, and not every Fallen Empires, obviously, artifact is good, but there's little ones like that that actually see play in crazy places. And if you're looking for a way to draw, or a way to keep a little bit of synergy to the deck with other cards like it, you can really get some drawing ability going in the most unusual way. So I like those kind of cards, okay? I like it. Now, our next card. This is the Credit Voucher. This is a 69-cent card. This is not a lot of money, okay? This is Marcadia Mask. It's never been reprinted, but that's beside the point. What does this card do for that whole 69 cents, right? This is nothing. 65, it's so cheap. Now, let's take a look. The Credit Voucher says it's 2 to cast. Again, generic. That's why I like these things. It's 2 to use, and it says sacrifice the Credit Voucher. Shuffle any number of cards from your hand into your library, and then draw that many cards. Now, if you have a bad hand, or if you've drawn an amazing large amount of cards and you need to cycle things through because you maybe have an infinite hand size, you know, it's kind of crazy to be able to have 20 cards in your hand and then reshuffle those 20 cards back in and get 20. And again, This thing can be used on your opponent's turn. It can be used at the end, and that's a nice thing. Combination with other cards like Winds of Change gives you a lot of abilities with cards like this to have a good time and spend less than $1. Let's remember that. That is less than $1 to get that card. So is it worth it? 4 for less than $4? Maybe you buy a moderately played one for 30 cents. Pretty inexpensive, and it can fit into any deck, and I like that. I've used a couple of these cards recently. They've worked fairly well for me in some casual Commander decks, and I tried it in a couple of Vintage Legacy. It didn't work. I got blown out of the water, but that's not the point. I had a good time trying, and that's part of the game, is doing experiences where maybe you don't always win, but maybe some crazy mechanic works that one time, blows people's minds. Love that stuff. Now our next card. This is Scroll Rack. Most of you guys will be familiar with this card, originally printed in Tempest. That's why I'm showing that version. $26. It's been reprinted multiple times. I'm not going to lie and say it's not, but what do we get for our money? What are we getting for like $25? It's a little more expensive, but this card has a lot to offer. Now, as a 2 casting cost artifact with 1 to use it, it says choose any number of cards in your hand and set those cards aside. Put an equal number of cards from the top of your library into your hand. Then put the cards set aside this way on top of your library in any order. It's a great way to stack your deck a certain way. If you use cards like Ancestral Knowledge, which is in our cheap reserve list card, you can kind of synergize these things together to really get a combination effect. After you've gone through the Scroll Rack, you bring out an Ancestral, and you can really kind of bump things up to a new level that most people will not be expecting. Most people won't see it, they've never heard of it, and if they have, they're not ready to see it come off and play off multiple times. But I like the idea that Scroll Rack has been reprinted because it has kept the price low. Okay, this Scroll Rack version, of course, is a Kaladesh invention. It's not my favorite artwork. I love the border, as always. I hated that they reprinted it. But the idea that these kind of things are in different printings means you are going to see a lot of value there. You're going to see a card that's inexpensive, still gets a lot of play, and could still rebound if it doesn't get a lot of reprints anytime soon. If they skip it for another 2-3 years, you may see a card like this on the rebound, which means you can actually benefit as the card goes along, and you get a lot of play time with it as well. Kind of an amazing thing. Now, before we go on to our next card, let's remember that any card that is not expensive doesn't mean it won't become expensive. We saw it with Sadistically. We've seen it with other cards. But it also means that if it doesn't have a namesake by now, a lot of people don't care about the card anyway. If it hasn't seen play in a major deck, if it hasn't seen somebody bust it and use it in some weird way, cards like this don't spike up. But there's nothing wrong with hitting up $4 on a card and speculating a really low spec, but actually enjoying the card and using it in some fanciful way that you get to have a little good time with, right? That's what I like to do. Yeah, you like to have a few cards aside in case you make some money on them. That's fantastic. And the fact you don't get hit if a card like this spikes, but at the same time, you got to play with it, and that's kind of a good thing. Now let me show you this next card here. So here we have Empress Galina from Invasion. Now this card has been reprinted. We've seen it in the list, and of course we saw it in a Secret Lair series. But what does this card do? Why is it so great? Why is the Moxman mentioning it? Well, for a 1/3, there's nothing glamorous there, especially for an old school card. But the 2 blue and 3 is also kind of a high casting cost. So what are we getting for our money? What are we getting for what we spend? Well, if you pay 2 blue and tap this creature, you gain control of target legend or legendary permanent. Think of legendary lands, think of saga cards, think of those crazy things we have out there that you can take control of. And the way Wizards of the Coast has been playing around with legendary creature types and adding so many new legends into Commander, this card has some places to go, and that's important to remember. And of course, depending on your palette and color wheel, this is a pretty inexpensive card to get. I mean, if you start comparing this card to things like the Preacher from the Dark, the casting cost is, of course, really radically different. 2 white and 1 generic versus 5. And you have to pay 2 blue where the Preacher just says tap. But the Preacher's more selective, isn't it? You've got to have things set up a certain way because the Preacher will say gain control of target opponent's creature, but opponent chooses the target creature you control. So that's kind of interesting, right? So unless you've eliminated their creatures or you're hitting one big creature they put out, it's a little more selective. It's not as good. And of course, if you're using something like a Willow Satyr, when you look at this card, it's a 4 casting cost. It's 2 blue and 2 green and 2 generic, pardon me for my color ineptitude. And it's a 1/1, but it says gain control of target legend. If Willow Satyr becomes untapped, you lose control. It's the same type of deal, except for Galina, you won't lose control at the end of the turn. So in some ways, it's a superior card. It's a better version, but it's in blue. Now, you can build a 5-color deck and include all kinds of these crazy cards to make them all work for you, but that kind of value is something you can't underestimate. Why would I want to pay as much as $75 for the Willow Satyr from Legends when I can buy Galina for $8? Maybe I'll buy them both if I have enough money. Maybe I'm building a multicolored deck with a lot of control purposes. But the idea you can get cheaper versions that do a similar effect is something you always need to be aware of. You can save yourself money, and the way Wizards is playing it right now, there's a real chance that cards like that will bounce back in the future if they find a serious home in a competitive Commander deck. Now, the last card I want to share with you guys today. Let's take a look. Not Willow Satyr, that was a mistake. Don't worry, we're late in the video, nobody's watching. Let's jump over to Spoils of War. This is from Ice Age. It's $1. And there's a reason I want to mention this card. Let's take a closer look at what we're getting here. Spoils of War is a black plus X. Put X +1/+1 counters on any number of target creatures distributed any way you choose, where X is equal to the number of creatures and artifacts in target opponent's graveyard. I want you to remember that, because when you look at Sadistic Glee, and you look at what's going on with that card, and now I've shown you a card like Spoils of War. Now, Sadistic Glee is a superior card, don't get me wrong. It's a better card. But used in conjunction with things like Spoils of War, which also target artifacts, and it doesn't go on one creature, it can be spread across many creatures in case they're going to be hit targets. This is an interesting card to kind of consider for future deck construction, especially when it's only $1, which means you can pop into any shop, go on TCG Player, and spend $1. And if you're going on TCG Player, I hope you guys remember to use my affiliate link. It's in the description of this video. Click that link, takes you to TCG Player, and this channel gets a 3.5% kickback. Pretty awesome. It helps the channel get prizes. So thanks again. If you're one of those players who uses my link all the time, I appreciate it. Spoils of War is a very inexpensive card. It's not going to cost a lot. It's not a big investment. It's not a big hit card that's going to make tons of money. It's not going to jack up in price. But again, if you take a look at that card, this thing was up to that $5 mark way back in 2021. It did have buyouts. It did have hits on it. And again, a closer look at that card. Is it really that bad when it doesn't just target creatures, but also artifacts? And depending on the opponent you're choosing and how you've built your deck, this gives you a lot of leg room if you've got some board clearance to make sure that your opponent's stuff ends up in that graveyard. So it's a card to consider is all I'm saying. Along with many of the other cards I showed you, they all have some playability, they have a lot of fun factor to them, and they can bring a lot of excitement and a lot of a game experience that some people may not be expecting. Either way, I hope you all enjoyed the video. I want to thank those people who make it to the end, who make it past the end, if you know what I'm talking about. I appreciate it. So thanks again for being here. I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow for another video. Have an awesome day today. Magic is just, it's awesome. Big shout out and thank you to all the fantastic patrons and regular viewers, YouTube membership members, everyone who helps make it happen here each and every day. I hope you guys have a great day in the world of Magic the Gathering. Thanks again. And because of the patrons and YouTube membership members, daily uploaded content is made possible because they're supporters of the channel, helping making sure things get done. Thanks again, everyone. I'll see you guys tomorrow with another video. Enjoy. You're here at the end of the video for words of wisdom. Welcome to the ramble and the jamble. I know you were waiting for it, so here we are. Yes, the coffee is in hand. Don't spill it. Gold nectar of the gods. I like those cards, guys. Not every card has to be a reserve list card. There are so many I would like to include. These videos get kind of long, but I do enjoy doing them, especially when you find cheap cards. You may not have a house for it yet, but the idea can spawn in your head, and you can get a conception. I like to write those down on a piece of paper, and I put it in like a deck box with a couple of cards I'm thinking about, or a deck list, and when I go back looking for it, you get that kind of cool thing, so I like that. Now, here at the end, I want to remind people here for the Ramble Jamble. Are your kids in the background? Are your kids there? Guys, why aren't you cleaning up? Why aren't you helping your parents clean the house? Why aren't you out there shoveling when it's winter? Why aren't you out there cleaning the dishes every day? Did you load the dishwasher? Are you the dishwasher? Yeah, I sure was as a kid. Help your parents out, man. Always remember, respect your elders, especially grandma and grandpa. Help them out too. My grandma would just make suggestions. She wouldn't tell us that something was wrong. She would just say, the lawn needs to be mowed. And that meant go mow the lawn. Help out. Guys, have a great day in the world of Magic the Gathering. Those are my words of wisdom today. And remember, of course, to shop smart, shop S-Smart. I'm going to step off here or there, maybe up there. I'll touch the light because it's well within reach. And it's just an awesome day. Great cards. I'll see you guys tomorrow.